welcome to another Cleverdix podcast. In this podcast, we're talking to the people behind Safeswim. Safeswim is an Auckland Council initiative that tries to tell people about safe swimming in open water. The people we're talking to is Holly Foreman, who's the driver behind it at Council, and Martin Neal, who's the Chief Science Officer that helps put it all together. We talk about how the whole system got started and how it evolves over time. It's not just a council thing. We talk about the partnerships they have with surf lifesaving and also water care. We talk about what it means to people who are involved in open water swimming as opposed to just beach bathers, and also a little bit of hints as to how swimmers can actually engage with them. I think this is going to be pretty interesting. I know it is a bit triggering for some people around the Auckland region, but it's good to hear the backstory of it. Here we go. Enjoy it. Welcome to another Cleverdix podcast. In this podcast, we're talking about Safeswim to Holly and Martin. Welcome, Holly and Martin.
Good morning.
Cool. So it's a bit different to our normal ones. Normally, we just go and ask somebody for their swim story, but obviously that's not really the case. But maybe you can just give us maybe the story of Swim Safe, sort of how it started and sort of how it's evolved, and you can sort of explain the why it actually exists, and then we can go into the how it works, and we can sort of have a conversation from there. So over to you guys.
Holly? No, you want to start?
Oh, that's a lot to unpick, but well, really excited to be here. Safeswim journey for me has been around about 6 years. I've been working on the program and managed Safeswim for the last 3. Super proud and privileged to be part of this program, and when I was given the chance, I thought I'd just jump at it. And I guess that's a little bit about me. And Martin, do you just want to have a quick
so I'm an environmental scientist. I've been working on Safeswim, the current version, since it started. I remember talking to you about it, Jim, back in 2017 when we developed the new program. In a previous job, I'd seen Safeswim data come across my desk from time to time, but I never had any sort of meaningful involvement until 2017.
And that's a great place to start. So Safeswim has been around for a long time, way before 2017, about 20 years.
Wow.
But the version that you know, the website, now an app, is 2017, and probably hand over to Martin, because Martin was one of the creators of the new version.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the like Holly says, the program had run basically going out and taking weekly samples once a week during summer, putting those sample results on a council webpage, and through the work we did at the time, nobody really knew much about it. We were relatively low profile.
So the whole point of it was really to make sure that people around Auckland knew when the water quality was good enough and you could go and safely swim, that you weren't going to get your little kids crook or something by taking them down to the water when there was an overflow, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole concept of these recreational water quality programs. It's about giving people information about what's the likely health risk from swimming at any particular time. The old monitoring approach that we used to do had been around for 20 or 30 years, and that was probably the best available techniques we had back in the day. There was a catalyst for change, which was the Havelock North drinking water incident in 2016, I think it was. And at that time, it was the managers of the Safeswim program, the senior managers, saw a potential risk in the way the Safeswim program was operated. And that's because I know Havelock North is drinking water and Safeswim is recreational water, but the underlying technical issues are the same, where if you take a sample of those two things and send them off to the lab to tell you whether the water is good enough to drink or good enough to swim in, you don't get a result for 2 days. So Havelock North was when people were drinking unpleasant water for 2 days. They got a test back, and then the first response to that test is normally to do a retest. So then you wait another 48 hours before you actually do anything. And so the same with swimming. So the risk is you're always giving people out-of-date information.
Yeah.
So the senior managers back in 2017 recognised that it was a risk, and they commissioned a review which looked around the world to say what's the best way that this is being done and managed around the world. And so essentially, as part of that review, we looked at examples of recreational programs in Australia, in Hong Kong, in Europe, in America, and essentially we cherry picked all of the good bits of those programs and put them together in Safeswim, and then added a whole load of local relevant factors that were important to people swimming in and around Auckland.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, we still work with those other programs, still work together, look to innovate and keep talking to see how we can grow and collaborate together. And so I think hopefully all the listeners know what Safeswim is. But as you said before, it enables you to jump online and see when and where you can swim. So you've got water quality information, water safety information, water temperature, tides. And it's not just real time now. You can look to 3 days in advance and you can plan, I guess it's heading into the weekend, where and when you want to swim. And so the new program in 2017 went from that kind of hidden information of old sampled results to now the real-time modelled and predicted website.
So, after you. So what you're doing at the moment is you're still doing sampling and monitoring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's debunk that right now.
Yeah.
Great question.
That's still happening, but you're putting it into a computer system and it's modelling based on historical information and the tests that you're doing and weather and tides and everything else and that's how you can forecast things going out for 3 days. Is that correct?
Elements of.
So maybe we can expand a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Duncan.
Start with the sampling, like how often and how does that look? 'Cause to go back to your earlier point, Martin, like pre-2017, I was chatting to a friend of mine. We were out on the water between Turi and Waiheke on the weekend. And I mentioned, hey, I'm going to go and meet these two legends at Swim Safe. And he was like, did I say Swim Safe? What is Swim Safe?
I was wondering.
And he can remember back in the day, a helicopter would arrive like once a season or every 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
This helicopter would come down and like scoop up a whole bunch of water and fly off to the next beach. So, I mean, I'm guessing that's the heritage or the background of
that was part of the program. So that there's a couple of things tied up. So there's, in general, taking a sample once a week.
Yep.
So if you're going out once a week and it's a day like today, so we're looking at, and there's a beautiful blue sky.
Yeah.
We're going to go and take a sample, and I'd be guaranteeing 99% of the samples we take from beaches today would be below the swimming guideline.
Below the swimming guideline?
Yeah, so okay, swimmable, yeah.
Gotcha.
So that'll be good. So the concentration of bacteria in the water is what we're measuring.
Okay.
And if it goes above a particular number, then it's above the guideline, and we say it's not suitable for swimming, or it's high risk, and below the guideline it's low risk. So if we go out every week in conditions like this, and we're just saying, well, all we're saying is when it's not raining, the water quality is okay.
Wasted everybody's time and taxpayers' money.
Yeah. So that's the fundamental basis of the monitoring approach.
Okay.
Auckland had a little bit of a special application where, yes, samples were taken by helicopter from some beaches. Mm-hmm. Now, that had a really good efficiency element to it because it meant you could sample 30 to 40 beaches in a day that you would never be able to do if you drove around to them all.
Yep.
The problem was, for health and safety reasons, that helicopter can't come right into the shore where people are swimming, so they're taking water in quite deep water, which I'm sure we'll come to later on. Yes. We know when you get the further you get away from the beach, deeper water, the better the water quality is going to be. So you're not only generating data on a sunny day like this, you're generating it probably in the wrong place. And so the swimming guidelines we work to, and the studies of health risk have all been done in the surf zone, and ideally we're going out and we're taking samples at about knee depth as a broad. That's the routine place where samples are taken, and we're looking for in the beaches we're looking for a thing called enterococci, which indicates the presence of fecal material. Which enterococci generally won't make you sick, but the presence of fecal material is inferred to be that there will be pathogens in the water, like viruses and other bacteria that potentially can make you sick.
So how do you collect those samples currently?
Currently, we've got a team.
We've got a team of samplers within council, and we also use contractors as and when needed. And they are out in the summer, well, pretty much every day throughout the year.
Yep.
Come rain or shine, but through our modelling program, we're actually chasing a lot of wet weather. So, it looks like the best job in the world, which it is to get to go and visit all our beaches on a daily basis. We want to get them out there when it's raining. It doesn't
work like this.
I know it's been a wonderful summer and it hasn't rained for a while, but no. So they go out and they're sampling in knee-deep water.
That's cool. And it's done by road now, that's the key point.
Yeah.
They drive to the beaches and we wait out because although the helicopter has some efficiency gains, it doesn't give us the data we need in terms of comparing with the health risk.
So you said by drone?
No.
I was going to say, come on, we've got to have some coolness.
There was a little bit of study. Yeah, that didn't work very well.
Yeah.
But
I've got a question about fecal matter.
Sure.
Okay.
So in my mind, being in mind, I have a little brain. I'm not a scientist. Just work with me. When it rains a lot of the overflow from the streets, so rainwater flows into the drains or gutters, as we call them in South Africa, drains, and that flows into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So where does the fecal matter come from? So,
Do you know?
Anyway, because obviously, unless everybody's, going to the loo on the street, in my head, I'm like, well, I get that it would be dirty, but I don't understand the fecal matter.
So one of the things we do now, in addition, and this is a relatively recent in terms of the last sort of 10 years where it's become a practical thing you can do, is we can actually do additional analysis beyond the fecal indicator bacteria, which is what we call host-specific bacteria. So we have bacteria in our stomachs that other organisms don't have. Same with, and the common things we test for are dogs, birds, and ruminants. So sheep and beef.
Gotcha.
Sheep and cattle. So in an environment where you have, even if you had no humans, no wastewater, we would still expect to see bird poo, possum poo, cat poo, dog poo, ruminant poo, and those types of poo still carry pathogens. Like birds, for example, Campylobacter, Salmonella are two of the big ones that we see.
Okay.
Yes, human wastewater or human fecal material is part of the picture, but it's not the only part of the picture.
Okay. That's just a small part of.
Gotcha. Just to go on from Duncan. Yeah. So you would get human fecal matter if you had a really strong downpour and you overloaded the system, or you've got you've got links between the sewerage system and the wastewater system. Is that what happens?
It can happen.
It can happen.
Well, some of the network here, the wastewater and stormwater network, is separate.
Yeah.
But the older parts of the city, they're combined, and so you get a lot of rain that overwhelmed, and then you get the overflows at engineered overflow points, so that to stop them backing up and going into your house through the toilet, they spill out in different places. And when they spill out, some of that majority is water, but also household waste, but also human waste.
So it's when it's really, really rained hard that we've got that risk. But if you're just getting little bits of rain,
it depends on the location.
Yeah.
It depends on the location. And the other thing is, obviously in the urban built-up area, we have wastewater networks. Yeah. Once we get into the rural areas, we have septic tanks, and it's really important that those are maintained as well. We've got places in the Safeswim program where we see human fecal contamination at beaches, and there is no wastewater network. It's just coming from septic tanks, which can be old, can not be maintenance, and all of that type of thing.
Okay.
So it's a complicated picture actually. The more you think about it.
Yeah. I suppose you've got all the guys weeing in their wetsuits as well, right? Which is a problem.
Oh, we's okay. I did hear one of your podcasts that somebody was talking about how many poos did you do on that ocean swim or something. That would be a problem for us. That would be a problem.
Okay, you could do that.
Okay.
Problem for us as well. So, I may be jumping ahead, right? But when you detect or sample bad water, I don't know if there's a proper term for it, but bad water, non-swimmable water.
Yeah.
How long does it take for that to go from black back to green? Is it just like a tide change or?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Do you want?
There's many. Well, you start.
Yeah. So I guess what you're talking about there is the recovery after like a water quality contamination event. It's probably important just to talk about the impact at the start as well. So locations, beaches, whatever we call them, where people go swimming, everything is sort of site specific. So there's a sort of for each location, the relationship we have with water quality is specific to that location. So some beaches are more sensitive than others. So we know, you've probably heard of the Central Interceptor, which is aiming to deal with some of the combined network down here.
Yeah.
We know down here, a couple of mils of rain and that network overflows.
Okay.
At the other end of the scale, we've got beaches, let's say somewhere like Taiwhanui, where we've been sampling there for 20 years and never detected poor water quality.
Okay.
So we've got everything from, if there's a cloud in the sky, it might be a bit dodgy to swim there, to, there could be almost Cyclone Gabrielle. We were doing sampling after that and we didn't see an issue at Taiwhanui.
So there's different beaches, different...
Yeah, and then on the so if we do then see an impact at a beach, then also the recovery is beach specific. So open coast sites might be, like I said, one tidal cycle, really quick flushing. We know that in the harbour sites, and we've got a model that helps us visualise this, the contamination comes in and it sort of sloshes around for a few days and maybe need 3 or 4 tidal cycles to flush out.
So each of them are different.
Yeah. So so that the impact is different, can be different amounts of rain or whatever, and then the recovery is a different amount of time.
And I think that's a really important point, because often we're asked, well, why is my beach green and the beach next to me is red? And it's because it's site specific. The models are specific case for that beach.
Yeah.
If we think about, we talked about just now the land, the rain falling on the land and washing stuff in, if you think about a beach that may has lots of piped discharges and a stream going to that beach, and the next one is an enclosed bay with no discharges, the likely risk of contamination of those two places is quite different.
Yes.
And we'd likely to see poorer water quality at the one with a whole lot of discharges.
Gotcha.
Because that's just where the source of the contamination is.
So one of the questions that we often get is there a sort of noticeable difference in quality between the inner harbour and in the Hauraki Gulf? Because quite a few people I swim and say, I don't want to swim in the inner harbour. It's not as clean or something. I was just wondering from your point of view whether there's a kind of a noticeable difference. Yeah, taking into account that it might take longer for things to settle down in the inner harbour. Is it better or worse or no different really in a harbour to the Hauraki Gulf?
Giving away the best beach secrets. I think it depends. Honestly, it depends where.
Yeah.
I don't think you can blanket that whole statement. But Martin, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that it's not a hard and fast, but some of the inner harbour sites around the older parts of the city that we've mentioned already, potentially have poorer water quality. But we know, there are 2 places on Waiheke that have got permanent red water quality warnings at the moment because there's local issues out there. So it's
you can't make a blanket statement.
And that's why it's so important to check every day.
And the problem is they're really localised impacts that only might affect one small place. We've even got a couple of places on Great Barrier Island where we're looking at water quality issues, and you would think that an island out there with all of the Hauraki Gulf flashing around it should be okay, but sometimes you can get those really sort of localised impacts that cause us to get stuck.
The failing septic tank over there, or you could have an illegal connection, a very localised illegal connection at a beautiful beach that is actually causing contamination that we are unable to find where it's coming from. So it's swings and roundabouts.
So by a legal connection, somebody is just linked sewage directly into a into a stormwater system. So it's just flowing out untreated, and that's what we call illegal. Cool.
So I mean,
or misconnection.
If we think about the swimming guidelines, so we haven't got a suitable size bottle here, but if we imagine this was about 100 mils, the swimming guideline we're looking for is 280. So 280 bacteria in a bottle that size would put us over the limit. Each gram of poo has about 15 million. So you can see it doesn't take a lot of poo to impact water quality in certain places. So then if you've got, septic tank that's being used by, an extended family or something like that, you could end up having quite a big
quite a big impact.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How big is your team?
Probably, in terms of samplers out and about, we've got 6 internal council sampling team. They're not just on Safeswim, sampling for other water quality projects.
Yeah.
And on Safeswim, permanent staff, myself, and then lots of independent advisors,
contractors,
as and when required.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and Martin's been working on the programme since 2017 when he started. I was just going to say, I was looking out to the ocean before as you were talking, and although we're focusing on talking about poo and all the bad stuff, I think, and there obviously are big issues when it's raining, I think sometimes we forget there's actually quite a lot of the places are good, and Auckland, we're really lucky with the incredible beaches and the good water quality at many of them.
Yes.
It's really easy to focus on.
100%. Right?
We often do. It's like, but I'm just like, wow, we're so lucky because I think we've got about 145 sites on Safeswim, and we monitor and sample about 50 others. Hopefully, gathering the data to try and make them a Safeswim site in the future. Always open to suggestions. We hope that we've got those sites that people swim at, but we're continually changing and building the program. But
so Holly, you're 100% correct. We are very spoiled because when it's raining or when it's windy or whatever the case might be, we'll pull out Safeswim or a weather report and we'll just find another beach that we can go to if our local beach is not available.
That's good.
So definitely it's adding value to us from that perspective.
please.
But so 145 locations, you say?
Yeah, within Auckland. Auckland, obviously Northland is now on Safeswim.
Yes.
And so there's about 80 Safeswim sites in Northland.
Okay.
And then across Aotearoa, it's also Surf Life Savings platform to communicate lifeguard patrol information.
Gotcha. I was going to ask about that link to Surf Life Saving if you want to talk to that. Because that's a great sort of collaboration. Right?
I think I have a little part to play in there.
I think you do. Absolutely. Let's hit that.
Yeah, well, I came along and people said, oh, well, you can say that it's safe to swim at Piha. I said, yeah, you might say that, there's not many bugs in the water, but there's 5 meter surf coming. Yeah. You might want to take that on board. So how's the partnership? It's a partnership, you'd call it, with Surf Life Saving, or how does that relationship work?
Yeah, I remember I think it was back in 2017, Jim, when we first talked about that, and you recommended and introduced us to Matt and Adam, who were the Chief Executive and Chief Operations of Surf Life Saving Northern Region, as it was at the time. And we had the same concern. So if you go back to the original review that was done, it talked about the fact that beach safety is not just about water quality. And in fact, a lot of the immediate risks of the beach are not water quality related, but the water quality is more of a longer term thing. And it does get a little bit underplayed because quite often the incubation period between going for a swim and getting sick might be a week or even slightly more. And so you don't tend to associate it with the swimming activity. Whereas, if you have a physical safety issue at a beach and, you get smacked over by a wave or hit by something or, near drowning, that is an immediate thing there at present. But yeah, so I remember the first time we went to go and see Adam and Matt and they were sort of nearly fell off their chair when we said council had a web page and they said beaches were safe based on water quality information, and they basically knew nothing about it and were astounded. But, we talked to them, we got them on board and we worked together to design the first version of Safeswim back in 2017. And at the same sort of time, we also talked to a few user groups, which included an ocean swimming group, and got some feedback on what they'd like to see. So the idea was to try to bring as many of these bits of information together in the same place. And Holly's been leading that partnership since. I think probably has more information than me around what's going on at the moment and how it's working. But
I think it's strength from strength. It's a really wonderful collaboration with Surf. They're fantastic, and it's a great addition to have water quality and water safety, and then to be able to jump on and find out when the lifeguards are patrolling. And so the teams out on the beach, they have they call it their patrol app, and they use it for all their kind of asset management and their day-to-day lifeguard patrolling, but they also have a link to Safeswim. So if they're looking at, the strong currents, onshore winds, sharks,
jellyfish.
Absolutely, the theme of the year. They will input into the app, and that links through to Safeswim. So it's real time.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and when they're on patrol, they'll update it. So they change their patrol times from 10 to 9 if it's busy, or extend it during the day. And so that's across the country, and so that's absolutely awesome. And they also are in charge of carrying out hazard assessments before a site goes onto Safeswim. They'll go and carry out hazard assessments so that information within the About Beach section on Safeswim shows the different hazards.
Tell you if there's a bad rip or rocks or a reef or something like that.
That sort of stuff, and so they'll do that, and then they'll also have the real time element as well.
So how can Safeswim stop 13-year-olds on jet skis acting like lunatics?
How can anyone?
Yeah. I think that's beyond an answer.
You can talk to the harbour master about that one.
Yeah. So the surf life saving and there's Tafata Aura, and so the kind of the environmental health advice, the jellyfish or the seabed eruption or the toxic algae that we're seeing in and around the region this year. We work really closely with the environmental health teams in council and Tafata Aura to work out. They approve the messaging. They're in charge of that side of Safeswim. And Surf Life Saving, again, they have their own access to Safeswim. They communicate their life-saving information. And then Drowning Prevention is a partner. Northland, now they're on board. And Watercare. And I know we've talked about wastewater overflows at some stage, or even now we can talk about black pins and the integration we have with sensors on the network. Again, real-time information. When there is a wastewater overflow at a site that we have sensors that's connected to one of our Safeswim sites, that sensor information goes into the back end of Safeswim, gets pushed up to the website and showing that real-time wastewater overflow, which results in a black pin. And as you'll see, you might have noticed the difference over the last couple of years on the pin, which now looks like an NZTA type in the status of the little pin on the map, investigating or complete. And there's a whole team at Watercare that look after that. So it's not just the automatic sensor information that we have integrated with Safeswim, but there's a team that if engineers or the public have notify there's a blockage, or if they're made aware of an impact, an overflow into the beach, even when it's not raining, they'll override the system and turn the pin black to communicate that they know that there's a wastewater overflow. And that's been such a growing collaboration, and hats off to Watercare to communicate that information.
Yes.
Clever Dicks is New Zealand's largest swim-focused podcast, and our team at Swimscapes is proud to be their official partner with all things swimming. Swimscapes offers boat piloting and safety for solo marathon swims, as well as various packages including marathon relay swims, swim camps, and swim adventure holidays. Swimscapes is also a facilitator of the Auckland Triple Crown, coming soon. Proudly brought to you by Swimscape.
So I don't know about this, but I was just thinking, the website is awesome and we've all seen it. Do you have in play or thinking about sort of preemptive notifications? So you might have a swim group that always goes out of Browns Bay, and you notice that it's water quality red, that you start sending emails or something. Is that something that's been thought of or considered? Oh, Holly's smiling, saying, yeah, let's get the story.
Oh, right, smile. Absolutely, because we launched our app this year.
Yeah.
So, cheeky plug, if you Android or Apple, go onto your app store and download it. But it's now, I think the functionality this year is exploring how we can use notifications and how we can land it correctly. You don't want to oversaturate the market and send
thousands out.
Boy, the cries wolf. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so it's working with people like yourself to try and work out what would be useful. And I think that's something we're going to research over winter to see how we can maybe do a couple of pilots next year. Maybe we start with safety notifications. If we knew potentially that there's many places on the West Coast with terrible conditions, how could you wrap that up in a notification which throws that to the users so that people know before they've driven out to the West Coast to go swimming? Because we know once you tend to get to a place, you're going to go swimming. So with Safeswim, you want to try and get people to check before they've made the decision to get in the car, drive somewhere, and then ultimately swim. So it's about behaviour change. So it's a great, if you've got an idea, happy to receive suggestions, but absolutely we're stepping through to try and understand the best way to land that with you.
So the one thought, because I come from IT, so I've got a bit of a techie background.
Perfect.
I don't know whether you have it, but having some sort of an API or something so that other technical people can go along and make the queries and kind of do it on their own. So one of the groups I'm part of is Beta Bay, which works out sort of the Marangi kind of area, and they've got a couple of techie guys with their own little website. And I don't know whether it's working at the moment or whether it should. What's that?
What's an API?
It's an application programming interface. It's a way of one computer talking to another computer. So if you've got a website, you could go and query that, and then once you got the data, you could do it. It's what Mike does all day.
I was supposed to understand that.
So yes, it's possible.
Yeah.
Safeswim, we push, or we have an API where other places can access and query the Safeswim data. Inadvertently, we made some changes this summer and inadvertently changed one of the APIs, and so there was a swimming group, and it may be the same people.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Were using it, and we had, the tech team had forgotten that they'd set that up 4 years ago or whatever it was, So it's theoretically possible, of course, yes.
So I just think that would be a useful thing, and then groups can do their own stuff with it as well as everything else. It's just another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah,
one of the things we trialled for a year or two at the beginning, because it was some of the ocean swim events was where we had some teething problems at the start, but we also had an event pin that would pop up 24 hours before to say there was an event coming up here, and then the event organizer could put information on it. It sort of hung around for a year or two, but the guy we used to work with moved on and started doing something, and it just sort of drifted a little bit. But there was that functionality, and we used to have this icon that would pop up at for the Takapuna Beach series. There was another one, I forget what the other one was, and even this week we're working closely with the Weet-Bix Kids Triathlon, which is this weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll be going out, and I've already talked to you a little bit about the problems with sampling. So we're going out to sample that location at the last possible minute so that we can get the sample back to the lab, process it, and give them a result before they make a decision about whether to. And even then, things can change in that period, but we're just trying to support them as best we can for that particular event. And because it's obviously it's a kids event, and the profile around that, so that they want to do everything they can to be seen to do the right thing.
2 questions, or 2 points. So the first one, maybe we'll come back to, but I guess the question is, who is the target audience? Because it's actually not open water swimmers, right? So I think I just want to touch on what we read from that site versus what mom and her 2 toddlers are going to read from the site. They're going to be 2 very different things.
Sure. Yeah.
And then to go back to the event scenario, I think it's very valid, right? Because there's a lot of guys out there that are now taking the site as gospel. And there was a scenario probably last year, if I recall, at Akaroa, Christchurch. Do you recall? It was a lot messy,
Yeah.
And so maybe just background for the listeners. Basically, there was a swim race. All the swimmers had, booked their flights and their accommodation. Event organisers had set up shop and everything was good to go. I don't know the full details, but somebody sort of said, hey guys, water quality issue. And there was a debacle, is there, isn't there? Apparently the water sample that they were looking at was a little older. It was a couple of days or a week old. Long story short, the swim was still cancelled. Whereas potentially if you could get the week pick scenario off the ground, and maybe we can help with that. I can put you in touch with some of those guys that run all of those events. I'm pretty sure they would be very eager to work with you because it's in everybody's interest, right? But that one was a bit wobbly, right?
Yes.
A lot of unhappy campers.
Agreed.
Yes, and while I can't talk to that specific one,
yes,
I think it's a really important point to say. It's all about giving the best available information to the user. We don't close beaches, and we give advice.
Yeah. Do what you want to do with this information, guys, right? That's effectively what it is, right?
And though through events and council event teams and licensing, I know different obligations do.
Well, it's a health and safety thing. If you can't put your staff into a situation that might be hazardous, so that kind of constrains the event team. But everything else is just information for people to take with and do what they want. That was kind of one of the things.
It's like being a dad, right?
You can't tell somebody what's true.
And so when it's a red
And they can ignore you.
and it's showing high risk on the website, it's swimming is not advised, but it's not. It's up to you. With wastewater overflows that are confirmed, take a slightly different approach, and it's our general advice is do not swim. But for red pins and for high risk, it is for the user beware, and to take that. And as we've talked about before, the different profiles of at the beach, or if you walk out slightly and we've worked with events before, staged in water. Walk out a bit further and then start your event so that you're not in that surf zone. There's different ways of managing events, and just to circle back to that, we'll touch on it in a second, but it's for the beach user. Safeswim is, for people who are going to the beach and for swimming, but we can come back to that because I know Martin wants to talk about the kind of difference.
Yeah, I mean, Safeswim is really targeted at, for want of a better word, the surf zone area of the beach. That's where the risk assessments have been done. So that's where we collect our data and compare against those thresholds for public health. We know the further you get away from the shoreline and then into the deeper water, the water quality generally improves. There were a few relatively old studies that documented that in New Zealand. I can't remember the exact year, but it would have been sort of 2018, 2019 when we were working with the event organisers around that pin. We were talking about how we could manage their events and help them manage their events to go ahead, because there were a few cancelled because of water quality alerts. And it's like you say, Jim, because it was considered a workplace for some of them who were operating on that event. But anyway, we worked through some protocols, which is where the deep water start came from, and that was supported by us doing probably a couple of $100,000 worth of sampling at various depths out from a number of beaches where ocean events were happening. So Takapuna, Milford, Kauai. Trying to think, there were about 8 beaches in play where we went out under various conditions, did lots of samples at various depths, and that's where we got to the point where, okay, if you're going beyond chest deep, you're probably going to be reducing your risk by a whole big chunk. We can't say there's no risk, but it's going to reduce your risk, and that's really important. Even when Safeswim says it's green, it doesn't say there's no risk. It's low risk. It's tolerable risk. That's what the government call it, but we call it low risk. There's still a chance you could get sick from swimming in that water, but it's low risk. And much the same if it's red or black. It's an increased risk, but it's no guarantee you're going to get sick from swimming in that water.
I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
So the one thing that comes from that, you guys didn't set the limits, right? You've taken that from national standards?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes. So we used the New Zealand standards that were published in 2003 by the Ministry for Health and Ministry for the Environment. And those are based on a whole lot of studies. Some were done in New Zealand and some were done in the UK, where essentially they controlled people's exposure. So they got swimmers and they all had numbered caps on, and they had to go into the water, spend a certain amount of time in the water, 10 minutes, dunk their head under 3 times. And then, so they would measure how many of those people got sick, and they'd measure the water quality and draw a relationship between that. So they know from those studies that people swimming or immersing themselves in poor water quality are more likely to get sick, and that's where the guidelines come from. It's a little bit of a missing link nowadays around the health burden because of the way, let's say, ethics have developed over the last 10 or 20 years. You wouldn't get ethics approval to do that type of study these days, to put people in a situation where, most of these illnesses are quite minor, but some people can get quite bad complications. We talked about Havelock North earlier on. Let's say 5,000 people got sick, but 5 people died of complications. So you don't want to do that type of study and have that type of thing happen. So that's why you wouldn't get ethics approval for that type of thing these days.
And as you said, you can get sick. And I'm sure you've seen when you're swimming all the time, all the listeners, but you may not then think that it was swimming because it's often, how
especially if it takes a week or so to get sick.
And respiratory infections are actually equally as common as stomach infections. And so, if I get a cough or a cold, I normally blame my kids and say they brought something home from school. Not because I went for a swim.
So it sounds like it's impossible to really get feedback on whether the water quality has affected people's health from what I'm hearing.
It's really challenging. There's probably one recent study, which was an opportunistic study. So in Copenhagen, they had it was equivalent of an ocean swim, Ironman type swim event. And there was a storm forecast, and they had a model running much like one of the Safeswim models. And the organisers were saying, we need to delay the start by a couple of hours to let the tide do its thing. The competition organisers went ahead with the swim anyway, and in the following period, 45% of the people in that event got sick. And that's written up.
You could have used your help at the Olympics last year.
Yes, that's another example.
Martin and I watched that, and
that was cringeworthy. Some of the stuff around the Olympics, but the Amsterdam example is it's the best recent example of what we around this type of issue.
And something that we really would love to do this year is to work with a swimming group and follow the group for this summer or for a year, and have a diary and try and understand those impacts. So if you've got any volunteers or we'd love to work with you. And going back to what you said before, Martin, around it's not about stopping people swimming. Everyone loves where we live, and it's like local knowledge. And to have scientists that when there are events and we can help and look at the rainfall, look at the model, talk to water care. Do we know what are the impacts and help you manage your event? It's not like a blanket. Sometimes it is, but often it's just actually let's work around this. As you say, what protocols can we put in place? And I think that's really important because we all know that each beach is different.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the reason why we're here, right? Is because I guess there's a very small part of the swimming population, swimming community, that take it as gospel. There's a black pin, I'm going to take 3 days off, Whereas there's other swimmers that go, don't worry about that, just go and swim. But if they are walking, wading in till chest deep, and they're swimming out deeper, and it's just how we use the information and how to, I guess, understand who the target audience is what I'm saying. I quite like the links into surf life saving. I think that's awesome because that's a little bit more swim specific. Hey, I'm on holiday. I'm going to Northland. I'm going to go to this beach. I've never been there before. What am I looking for? Is it a safe swimming beach? Can I go out deep? Are there rocks? Are there jellyfish? What do I need to look out for? And that's, I think, a big benefit for the open water swimming community is not so much the water quality. Obviously, they're looking at that. But what are the other aspects? What does a windy day do at Takapuna versus, Pilot Bay in Mount Maunganui, for example? Reefs, shark sightings, all of that type of stuff is really key.
And it's a fantastic partnership, and I know Surf and being part of this kind of innovation looking at rip current automatic kind of warnings and forecasting. They've been working with universities globally to try and see how they can help to predict and communicate that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that's something that we'll see come through over the next few years. And also another part of council have cameras at certain locations to help monitor, I guess, coastal erosion, how the coast is changing over time. But we're looking to see how we can grab those camera feeds as well. It's not necessarily a wave cam for the surfers, but it's really awesome to be able to see what it's looking like. So that hopefully will be something this year.
Some of the surf clubs have got cameras as well. So I'm pretty sure Marangi Bay's got a surf camera off the clubhouse.
Okay.
So you can sort of just log on.
I don't know if it's theirs. They might be hosting it because
possibly.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's awesome, right? You can actually physically have a look what the beach looks like, the surf looks like. Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, that ties in when we put this thing together. It was about, okay, we did a review and there were like 13 different websites you could go and get relevant information from if you were really minded to. It was like, okay, well, how much of that stuff is really important and how much can we put into one place?
Yeah, one-stop shop.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, even if it's just links to other places, because they might have specialist information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just linking back to that, getting engaged with some of the sort of swim groups, should they just reach out to you, Holly? What's the best way if a swim group wanted to work with you guys to maybe it's how many people they think
Holly has plenty of free time, so she welcomes.
What I'm going to suggest, Jim, is that they contact Clever Licks. And we can maybe sort of pass on the relevant queries to Holly.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah, so we can feed through because there's a couple of fairly big sort of swim groups around Auckland, and it would be interesting. And it depends how you want them to interact. So if you guys think about that, whether it's a form you fill out at the end of the year to say how many times you were sick or whatever it is, if you think about that, then we'll get these guys to reach out to us.
Have you got togs? Because I've got a brilliant way of getting you closer to your information if you want.
Go swimming?
Yep.
Love to.
Cool.
Maybe not at the extreme swimming side of things that you generally both do, but I love swimming.
No, there's extreme and there's good fun. So, for example, the Bay to Bay guys, they go out, a group of anything from like 5 to 20 people, and they go out in sort of 500-meter stints or distances, and then they stop and they regroup and they make sure everybody's fine, swim to the next point.
And there's always one person to say, you don't have to swim far, I'll come back with you or something like that. There's lots of quite,
I swim in the ocean whenever I can. That's why I love what I do. Because I love the ocean. It's like amazing. But I'd love to. And Martin and I would go and meet community groups. We talk to scout groups. We'd love to come and talk to swimming groups and one to help with potential studies like we've just talked about, also to have suggestions and ideas and feedback. It's a pretty mature system now, so we're not this year we're not looking to do huge changes to the system, but tweaks and things that will be helpful to the people that use it. That's exactly what we're here to do and help.
Any of the other councils looking at tagging on and doing the same type of thing on the South Island, for example?
Yes, I think so. Well, it's really awesome to have Northland. Most Aucklanders go to Northland on holiday. So it's a natural progression. So really grateful for Northland. Wellington have started predicted models. And I think in Canterbury and Christchurch, they're looking to do that because of those issues that you've mentioned. I think they're looking to see how they can move from that monitoring to model-based approach. But I'm not quite sure where they're at the moment.
That'd be cool to sort of have something. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. You don't want to have one thing to necessarily to rule the whole country, but having one place where people can go and get reliable information, regardless of who's provided it, is pretty cool.
I think that's what the senior managers here would say. Happy to share we've got this tool, we've developed it. It's been recognised by the World Health Organization in 2021 as a global example of best practice for communicating this stuff. So we're just here to share. It's too small a place to be competing. It's not about that. It's about how can we have a place where others can use it or share it.
I mean, that's a really good point. You sort of come full circle. I said, we looked around the world and we cherry picked all the cool stuff and brought it together. I'm currently talking to the EPA in Melbourne, currently talking to the Environment Agency in the UK. Yeah. They're trying to say, okay, we like what you've done, how could we copy some of your elements? So it becomes sort of like a full circle of, learning from each other in terms of how to do this stuff, which has been really good.
And, start off with the switch from monitoring to modelling and the site specific, but then it's those partnerships, the collaboration with surf and drowning prevention or water care or the health too. Yeah. As we talked about jellyfish, to be able to communicate those issues, it's been every year, depending on the weather, is that, last year, 23, 24, after the cyclones and the sewer collapse and it was a very wet year and lots of black pins, but then this year it's been so dry, but jellyfish.
Yeah,
that's all everybody wants to know. I have had hundreds of emails about jellyfish.
Yeah. Cool. One other thing I wanted to ask, I don't know if it's still there, but there definitely was for a while a digital board at Takapuna.
Yeah.
Is it still there? Is it going to continue? Is it going to be the program going to get expanded, or how does that go?
It's still there. It's a multilingual one actually at Takapuna. We have 13 digital signs around the region, and they've been pretty good. Often you can never know if people are using them, but when they break, we're the first to know. Mm-hmm. So I think it's one of those things. Now it's there. It would be hard you wouldn't want to take them away.
Yeah.
But they are quite expensive, and they're there. They are not vandal proof.
Where's the digital board at Takapuna?
So it's pretty close to the toilet block. As you walk down to the beach, just on the left, it's there.
And physically, just as I would find on the webpage, just all the information.
Yeah, but
it's just about Takapuna, right?
Gotcha.
So you can't kind of scroll into other things.
Yeah, so 2/3 of the sign is a big screen showing the Safeswim pin at that site. And then underneath, you've got a kind of scrolling board information, QR codes to what are we doing about it in your area, to if there's toxic seaweed. Well, that's okay.
I need to look up from my
Mission
phone.
Bay, Clouds Beach. But we touch wood. This last couple of years, they've been less vandalised. But at the start, if you'd have asked me that a few years ago, I'd been like, "Oh, just get rid of them," because they were being vandalised. And
they have evolved a bit from the first iteration. The first iteration was quite fragile.
Yeah,
and it was easy to break. And then if you did break it, you more or less had to replace the whole sign.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's much more like there's components that you can swap components out of.
Yeah, this really awesome small technology engineering company that just come up with brilliant solutions to try and help us and to stop the vandals.
And that was to get over a communication problem. So we can't send out an army of people to go and put signs on a beach every time there's a water quality alert, because we've got loads of beaches that might not last very long. So we got the idea of the digital signs from Scotland, actually, which you would think is maybe too cold to swim in, but they've got these little LED screens on some of their beaches that are just basically hooked up. And so that's where we got the original idea from. And we were just going to do one as a conceptual thing to see how it went down. It was so popular, we had letters coming from councillors and community groups saying, "Can we get one at our beach? Can we get one at our beach?"
All the local boards want to one at their beach.
And I think there's one down in St Mary's Bay. I can see it from here, which I'm pretty sure the marina paid for it.
And would that have like water temperature and stuff put
it does.
That board as well?
It does. I think the water temperature and the UV as well.
Where would the water temperature get measured?
We use
or is it just like a general?
No, NIWA modelled water temperature is the meteorological input for the water temp on Safeswim.
Got you.
So I think swimmers with thermometers, you'll probably have more specific, accurate readings, but we use the model.
Yeah, if anything, it's probably
absolutely.
But it's probably more suitable for you guys as open ocean swimmers because that's where the temperature was. You get much broader variations in the shallow water where if you get a sunny day,
much
it can go up 5-10 degrees.
You swim into the beach on a winter's day, you can feel it drop.
Yeah, and it's not just all the wee and stuff. It's actual physical heating going on in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So talking about sort of open water swimmers specifically, we're still good for time.
Yep.
Back in your mind, Holly, Martin, but potentially something to work on a year, 2-3 years down the line. What I'd love to see. Let's use Takapuna as an example. Again, I arrive from Christchurch or from Brazil, whatever it is, I'm on holiday. At Takapuna, you've got your 5-knot yellow buoys, which are boating specific, slow down on your boat or a jet ski, etc., etc. But then there's also those red or pink swim buoys, ABC, which somebody has put there. I don't even know who put them there. Do you know? Put them there? Somebody
Harbour Master?
Could be Harbour Master, because that's technically the swim route, right? Yeah. How do we educate people about that? So, for example, in that particular case, what is the distance between the buoys? How far is it to buoy number 1? I'm new to open water swimmer. I'm 50 years old. I'm coming from, can I make it to that buoy and back? How far to the second buoy? Different routes. Like if you want to swim 1 kilometer, here's the route. If you're looking to do a 3 kilometer, this is the route that we recommend is safe. For example, when those buoys get cleaned, they often get moved, and that aggravates a whole bunch of swimmers as well, because they've got their little routine, and they go to a certain buoy and they know it's at that point and it's that distance, but sometimes the buoys are cleaned and they're put back somewhere differently. So there's just, from a health and safety perspective, where is it? So we can do a write-up on Safeswim as to where you can go and where you can't go.
Yeah.
But what are the physical indicators that could potentially be included down the line?
I'd love to explore that more. I think let's keep talking. I think there's great opportunities. Something similar that we have, different that we have done already, that's currently on, if you go onto Piha on Safeswim, click onto Piha, about a beach, there's a video that's filmed by a drone, and it films across the beach showing you different hazards that you may expect as you go.
Exactly what we need.
Yeah, and that was a pilot we carried out with Surf Lifesaving, and have a look, love your feedback, but it's that sort of thing, how we'd replicate that, or maybe we could choose a pilot set something for ocean swimming, but all these suggestions, all ideas, it's absolutely just conversations and how we can help, and let's keep talking, open to new stuff. And we have updated our FAQs a lot this year, so hopefully listeners can go on, and if there's more information, we've covered a lot, but if there's more information, hopefully you'll find it. But we could, if you ocean swimmers in Auckland have a website, for example, we could maybe link to that, or look at these things.
There's a lot of angles that we can look at, so we'll keep talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Super keen.
Look at that Piha video, because it was really cool, and we just weren't sure what sort of uptake and interest it got, and if that would be helpful to replicate in other places. So.
Well, I think, it would be, because, we kind of started talking at the beginning that there's a couple of different sort of groups, and this is very sort of targeted kind of at mum taking kids down to the beach, but then, you've got surfers out there, you've got ocean swimmers out there, you've got a number of different sort of user groups that you might want, and we might have to have a think about what each one of those different groups
is. Got one Holly.
Well, she's a council staffer and she works really hard.
Jim's allowed to come back, is it?
Is that's why you've left council now?
I was working too hard.
Right. No, I mean I'm really blessed with an awesome team. We've probably got 8 people, 8 different scientists, modelers, subject experts working on the Safeswim team all the time, and we just work together. So, but I think it's been such a valuable conversation to hear and talk. I've mostly spoken to us and haven't had time to ask you questions, but about from ocean swimming, because as you say, we focus on those going to the beach. So absolutely, I'd love to have a further conversation and get out there in the water.
Yeah.
Let's get our wetsuits on, Martin. Get out there.
I'm a terrible swimmer.
I know I'll leave you at the beach. We'll take your kids, they can come out.
I'll stay in the surface and we'll stay.
Higher contamination.
We'll take you guys up on that, and
awesome.
we'll try our best to keep in touch and provide feedback. We'll ask our...
Well, I think if all the listeners can just feedback to us at Clever Dicks, any of their things, if they want to hear from you directly, we can organise with you. If you say you go and talk to different groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if that's something that somebody wants.
Are there any gatherings or, if there's any ocean swimming awards or something like that?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a great idea. Yep.
Yeah. You could line Holly up and throw wet sponges at her or something.
Yeah. For charity.
Start getting Holly on here. Our chief scientist should be nominated. You're the one that causes the pin, guys. But if you wanted to have a follow-up conversation about any more of the detail that we've covered today, or if you get feedback from anybody that actually would like to talk more on a certain subject, absolutely happy to come back.
Oh, yeah, let's see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation. And yes, we need to give you more of a chance for you to grill us.
Yeah. I want to hear about the incredible things that you've achieved and the places that you've swam. We can give you the best beaches in Auckland, but you can give us the stories and the animals that you've seen along the way. And there's encounters with sea breeders eruption.
I saw a hammerhead shark on the weekend.
Okay, that's...
While we had a swimmer in the water.
Oh.
It was a baby hammerhead.
Oh, great.
But it was just beautiful and super slow motion, just coming to sort of have a sneaky peek at what the hell we were doing there. And then closer to Waiheke, we had a pod of about 6 dolphin. Cool. Come and join us. So beautiful, right?
Yeah, that's why we're here. We're so blessed.
Yeah. We are so blessed.
I mean, it is such an awesome place.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Anything else from your side?
No, I think that's all good. Thank you so much.
Cool. Have an awesome day.
Thank you. Cool. See you soon.
Hi, my name is Caitlin O'Reilly. I'm the youngest person to have completed the Ocean 7 Challenge. If this really cool podcast has helped you learn something new, maybe it's introduced you to new swimmers, made you smile, then please take the opportunity to subscribe to Duncan and Jim's channel. I'm sure they would absolutely appreciate all your support. Cheers.
Thanks, Caitlin. Well, as always, you can give us feedback on our Instagram account @CleverDicks or send us an email cleverdicksnz@gmail.com. We'd really appreciate hearing from you. And cheers. We'll speak to you again soon.